Lift off in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, Sue.
Hi.
So the first thing that I'll start with is I know you fairly well now. We've probably known each other for a couple of years now,
Yes.
and I have no idea how to pronounce your last name.
So Grabois is the proper pronunciation, I'm told, from Tony's side of the family, but they've changed it to Gray Boys.
Oh,
So-
Gray Boy is probably what I would have said.
Yes.
But I didn't think, it's funny, it didn't sound right.
Yeah.
Graboy sounds more appropriate to what I see.
Correct.
Interesting.
And then everyone wants to spell it Grayboys.
Of course.
And so Tony just lets them do that. They spell it back and he says yes.
So, thank you for coming. I'll welcome anybody who's watching to Body Mind Index. I'm your host, Jerry Pujals, with a relatively new friend, because we see friendship as usually something that develops over a lot of time, and sometimes it doesn't always happen that way. I felt a connection to you and Tony when I went to your house for the first time. As I've told you before, it was interesting and serendipitous how this relationship evolved. I have your real estate agent, who is David Tipp, who's been in the business for, like me, 1,000 years, and he's generational because his dad was a well-known real estate broker for a long time.
Yes.
In Northern California. So David calls me, and David has a question for me because David is resourceful, and David sees that what we do to help our clients, it's a little bit out of the box. We come with resources, and we come with engineers, contractors, designers, different things. And you had, I think, if I remember correctly, it was a foundation issue. And I think you guys felt like that foundation issue was part of the reason the home was not selling, or it was keeping the home. This is all I'm recalling. This is just from memory. And it wasn't my transaction, so I remember very little about it. But I just remember that, and I remember him saying that, and then I remember me telling you about some resources that I had and people that I knew that knew how to engineer a foundation repair without having to put in a new piece of a foundation or something like that. I think you were able to get a hold of the person who I really respect, and he's done a lot of work with me in the past.
Amazing.
Stunning person. He does a lot of cement work in Yosemite. He does most of the cement work that's highly complicated. He does it for the government in Yosemite. So he's super intelligent. Amazing person, right?
He was.
He actually built a floating sidewalk, a floating cement sidewalk for me, if you can imagine. I'll let your mind run with that. On the side of a hill, it was a floating sidewalk with nothing underneath, made out of cement.
Wow.
So this is how brilliant this person is. So fast forward, you were able to repair or remedy the situation, or at least provide a remedy. Your house sold. You moved out of the area, but now you came back. But going back to my walkthrough in your house, what I found fascinating, and it'd be nice, I'll share it with Idisham here, because Idisham would like to hear, even though Idisham doesn't listen to anything that we talk about, as I mentioned, he would appreciate this, is that out of all the thousands of homes that I've been in my real estate career, and the amount of properties that I've personally been involved with, I've never seen a home where the inhabitants of that home lived probably the most healthy lifestyle I've ever seen anywhere. I've seen homes with gyms. I've seen homes with expensive $100,000 gyms, $200,000 gyms, saunas, steam rooms. I've seen all kinds of things in homes, but nothing that appeared to be used. Your home was different. When I walked through your property, it was as if you were using that right before I got there. And like you were probably going to use it sometime later that day again. And and that's what I found fascinating. I thought, wow. And then Tony also reflected somebody who looked super healthy, and vibrant. And I just thought, I didn't know anything about his boxing career. I didn't know anything about that. But I just thought, boy, these guys really walk that walk. At that point, I was probably 250 pounds with another 30 or 40 to gain after I saw you. But something stayed in the back of my head, and then we stayed connected. You were so generous. You gave me an unnecessary gift that we enjoyed, and we appreciated. That was unexpected and highly appreciated and super unnecessary, but thank you. And then we stayed friends on Facebook, and I can see that you guys are trail running, hiking, doing all the things. Hiking is something that I've always been near and dear to me, so we had that in common. And then you probably saw some of the things that I did. And fast forward a couple of years, here we are together now because of some of the changes that I've made, inspired by what I saw in your house and the lifestyle that I saw. So I find that fascinating, how me being in your space made such an impact that it stayed with me. And then as I saw you in social media, I kept thinking, wow, it'd be nice to get to that place one day. And what I found serendipitous is that you invited me to your house last Friday, and you and Susan went for a hike. Tony and I went for a trail run.
Yeah.
And I probably did my fastest downhill I've ever done. Almost killed myself. My back is still suffering.
We'll have to talk about that.
I'd love to talk about that. Coincidentally, I didn't know that you just brought me a gift, and it happens to be a CBD ointment.
Based cream,
which
yes.
I'm looking forward to
Yes.
using on that portion of my lower back. But I had the most fun running with Tony and talking while we're running, and it was pure magic to me, and I want to do more of that.
Yeah.
I want to learn how to do it so I don't kill myself, because I'm an extremist. So my friend who's in Alaska just ran an elevation race. It was only 6 miles in distance, but it was, God forgive me, Ron, if I say run, but I think it was like 3,000 foot elevation
Wow.
race. So you're going 3,000 feet up, 3,000 feet down in 6 miles.
Wow.
It was super steep and super dangerous. But I'd love to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love for you and Tony to go and do that. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. I was just on the phone with him when you walked up.
Okay.
So-
That's great.
So again, all that to say, I wanted to spend some time with you, and that's why we're here, and I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I like to share. I'm flattered about that you could recognize that our house was functional, and that was a big piece of, what we do was utilizing that gym. And it was great that it was a family room downstairs, and it was just me and Tony. So we had, 4 bedrooms upstairs, and we used one of them as a family room, but we incorporated that into a workout room, and it had a big window where you could see outside in there, which I loved, into our front yard. And then the front door is right there by the gym. So you warm up in there, do your weights, do whatever you want to do. Maybe it's a full workout, maybe it's just a warm up, and then you're out the front door to go down to the state park, to do a run, to, head over towards Glen Cove. And it was just very, it was very useful and very practical for us. And I miss it. We got a lot of use out of that. But now we have a gym set up outside of our house, which is even better.
Yeah, but what's even better than that is you have a trail,
Yeah.
a hiking and running trail at your back door.
We do.
And you have a backyard that's set up for any type of workout.
Yes.
It's stunning.
My brain's clicking. We're setting up a sled that we can pull and push.
Yeah.
And then we want a bar with where we can press weight
Yeah.
off the bench. So that's our next 2 things we're going to
Oh my God, that's amazing. So can I ask you, one thing that I don't know is, when did has it always been a thing, or did that at some point did that happen? Because I know Tony has been boxing forever,
Yeah.
but how did that whole thing come? How did you and Tony come together on the idea of, we want to focus on probably health span as much as lifespan, and be healthy and be of service, because you guys donate a lot of your time. You do a lot of amazing things. So I'd like to know, how did that happen? How did that, was there an aha moment?
No, I don't think so. I swam. All of us kids, all 5 kids, were on the swim team for a while when we were. I was only 5, so I was the youngest. So
Yeah.
we were on the swim team for a while. So I had some exposure there with exercise, and I liked it. It was a positive experience. I feel like I've always been active. I cut the grass, I would trim the bushes, I had a garden, I liked being outside, and no formal exercise, but Tony always, when I met him, he was, I almost had found the boxing gym, but he came up, playing whatever season of sports it was, baseball, football, basketball, he was always involved in sports. So when we did meet and get together, I guess I was exposed to, him wanting to work out on a daily basis and wanting to be healthy. And I don't know why, I've always been kind of fascinated with, wanting to be healthy and how food translates into making yourself healthy. That always made sense to me even when I was a kid. I'm not sure why. No one really exercised, formally, or talked about, this is a balanced diet, but it just, it interested me, and it kind of developed as we were together and got married, and he wanted to, lean out a little bit before a boxing match, or gain weight a little bit afterwards, and then started learning about vitamins and minerals and the food pyramid. And I would take the kids to the library once a week, and they would get a big stack of books. That was a big deal. And I would get my big stack of books, and it was, about health and wellness and nutrition. And I felt like that was kind of my job as a mother, to raise my children in a healthy way. And so I wanted to learn. I love to cook. I've always loved to cook, and so I wanted to prepare the correct meals and be properly hydrated. And back then, they're in their 40s now, and so that was limited information, and all around what the government, what the food pyramid was. And so, but it was a foundation, and it's just evolved. And especially as we've got older, and Tony's very driven to challenge himself much more. I like to challenge myself, but when the kids were younger, I didn't do that as much. I was more connected around that area. But as they got older and got more independent, I started to, Tony encouraged me to go with him and, try a race and do some different things. And it was kind of amazing how you can push yourself, do the training, push yourself, and recover and feel good, and what comes from that, and how it just builds on itself. And if you want to succeed, you want to go from a 5K to a 10K to a marathon to an ultra marathon, it just slowly kind of evolved. And the journey was, how can we keep ourselves healthy enough to really succeed at these things?
Do these things, yeah.
And the research just started pouring out. Everyone's on board and wants to feel better. And functional medicine, where these medical doctors were saying, I'm tired of, I can't treat these healthy people that are having these problems with medicine, or medicine to cover symptoms. I want to help these people. And everybody, doctors want to heal, and you have to get to the root of what the problem is. If you're having stomach problems, which a lot of women are plagued with, unfortunately, from stress and for different reasons, that this functional medicine did testing, came with testing on your stomach, and was able to really see the root cause, and then diet and lifestyle changes that cured it, that healed it. And I mean, that's a miracle, because again, especially for women, and I went through it, and that's how I know. So it's evolved, and it's been exciting along the way, because we've just had, good luck. We've been injured, and we've had, setbacks, but we've always just been able to come through. And I feel like I feel like we're just average people, you know, and that with a little effort and research that the information's so available now to everyone.
But I would say, I would say you're humble because average. It's something that you say because you're humble. You're not average at all. Just the way your home was set up, and this new home that you have now. I told you as I found myself walking from your kitchen to go to the restroom, I walked past a room and there's a meditation room, and everything is set up outside. You have ellipticals under a beautiful canopy and just looking at the mountains. It's just set up so well. There's a pull-up bar that I couldn't help but just stop by and crank a couple of pull-ups. So the home is designed to remember to care for yourself
Yes.
as you move, not as an afterthought, but as a way of living. And not average whatsoever. You are the tiny minority, unfortunately. Hence, one of the reasons I'm so glad you're here sharing that is so it selfishly helps me realize where I can improve too. A pull-up bar should be a thing somewhere in my house, that I have to walk past and try to do a couple of pull-ups, or and then a couple of dumbbells, or a couple of, maybe in the back patio, a couple of heavy dumbbells for some farmer carries, or things like that, because I do have the space. Susan might not be, from a designer's aspect, she might not be as thrilled, but I think there's a way for us to come together and do it in a way that is tasteful, and it doesn't, we can navigate through that.
Right.
But I'm curious, because as I was listening to you, I'm thinking, did working in the ER did that help cement things when you would watch people? Because I struggle watching the fact that there are many doctors and nurses that struggle with weight and struggle with their health.
Yes.
So it's not like because you're exempt from it. There's so much environmental about being unhealthy. So I'm wondering if that had anything to do with it.
I think wanting to understand about the human body and what we need to be better and stronger and faster, I needed to learn more about anatomy and physiology. And I think that in a roundabout way kind of pulled me towards healthcare. And so transcription was what originally I wanted to do in healthcare, was typing and transcribing doctors' notes, but it just, different opportunities happen, and you take advantage of them because they just sound great. And so I kind of went from family doctor medical group in Vallejo, just being a receptionist, and then I met somebody, and they said, I think you'd be great, in the emergency room, and I don't think so. I don't know anything at that level.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what, you don't have to. You'll learn it. You're smart. You're sharp. You'll get it. And we need good people. So the next day, I put in my resume, and the next day the manager called me and hired me over the phone, which is unheard of at Kaiser. You usually have to go through all this stuff. But the nurse that I knew, they respected him a lot, and they trusted him that he was picking someone good. And so they hired me, and I showed up and, on the job training, and it was a receptionist role, but you're out in the waiting room checking in patients that are coming in for medical emergencies.
You're seeing it all.
And it was a tough role. It really was. It was stressful, and it encouraged me to learn more, though, about what was going on and what was going on with these patients that were walking in. So it did support already where we were about good health. Keeping yourself in good health, because we had exposure to a lot of people that didn't take care of themselves and ended up in the emergency room, and sometimes didn't make the car ride to the emergency room. So it did help me think about that, and got me learning more about the human body, and that was a good thing.
So how do you, I'm just curious, I think a lot about mental health. Hence the name of the podcast, Body Mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because as far as I'm concerned, they're together. You don't get to segregate them. They live with each other.
They do.
I'm curious, because you and Tony seem so calming The more I learn about Tony, the more I learn that he's got an explosive side. And by explosive, I mean he's dynamic. He also has a temper. Once you get him there, it's probably a bad thing. Because he reminds me of, I have friends like that are very calming and this and that, and they're very in control of a situation because they're very confident in their capabilities, and they don't want to hurt somebody else. They really rather not, till it's just, till now they have to protect whoever's around them or themselves, and that's when it becomes like God. And then what I find fascinating is that they almost hate themselves afterwards because they almost wish it didn't have to go there. Mm-hmm. It's like then they, just because they have the capacity to take care of somebody or themselves, then they kind of feel like, gosh, I just wish that wouldn't have had to happen. But I'm just curious as to, what do you guys do? Because you seem so calming to me. You seem very calming. You seem to really work well with each other. You gel really well with each other. I'm sure that wasn't plug and play. You guys, like Susan and I, have been together a long time, so you know each other, and you know each other's strength and soft spots. You probably know them too. So I'm curious, what do you do to continue to develop that?
So I met Tony at a party when I was 14, and
Wow.
he was 16.
Wow, so it's much further than I thought.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we actually ended up at the kitchen table, sitting across from each other, talking.
How adorable.
And there was a connection. I'm 14-year-old, silly
Sure.
14-year-old, and I thought, oh my God, I'm in love, and there was a connection, but he's a 16-year-old
He's like
guy.
14,
He's like 14.
this kid.
Yeah, whatever. And
Yeah.
so I went back and told my friends, I met this guy, and we're going to get married and have children, and I'm telling you, he loves me, and I love him, and it was ridiculous. But here we are. For me, there was just a strong connection. There really was, like, first time meeting. So, I think about, we went through like 10-year increments, when we first met, and our first child 10 years, and then the next 10 years. We've been together 40 years. We've known each other obviously longer, but 40 years of marriage. And so, there's ups and downs always, but I think we're both able to, him more than me, compromise, right? Where you come to a fork in the road and you just feel so strongly, whether it's about children or...
So you're saying that Tony compromises?
More than I do.
More than you?
More than
that
I do.
Surprises
in the past.
me. Yeah.
I think we're similar now.
Yeah.
Because I see the value.
Yeah.
There's so little value in stomping your feet down and clenching your fists and saying, I know this is the way it's supposed to be, and I know, because you know what? Maybe it is, but there's that 10% of that decision that's, can change and turn, and you look back and go, I wish I would have compromised a little more, and he could have, been in on it, and we would have did it together, and it would have been better.
Yeah.
So I've learned that over time, because I'm the hard head, and he can make a stand. It takes a lot to push him into the corner, and I don't. Yeah. You can see it coming from 100 miles away, so I don't do it.
Yeah.
And he's been much more willing to trust me, that even though I'm being a big baby sometimes.
Yeah. No, he has a very special soul. I hear him. I was running behind him, and he's talking, and he's talking loud enough to where I can hear him. And there were times that he was talking, I wanted to record him, because he was saying some things that were, and obviously I couldn't, because and then I would have told, there is a little piece that I recorded, I would never use it, but I was going to let him listen to it, because there were clips of things that he was saying that I thought were pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I just thought there was so much wisdom in some of the things that he was saying, and I thought, holy, this is a cool moment. This guy is a deep guy.
Yeah.
Very deep, and the way he wants to help kids, and the way that he talks to kids, and the way that he wants to keep kids out of trouble, because we've all been there, of that. And
He's a whisperer with
he
kids.
really is,
He
huh?
doesn't say anything. He'll go into where kids are, and they just feel his peace and his strength,
Yeah.
and they want to be by him. They trust him, and that's a good thing. And so when he coaches, he really, and that's what he'll, talk to kids about. Are you interested in karate? Are you interested in jujitsu? It's a much safer thing to do
than any other.
over the long term than getting hit in the head,
Yeah.
But there's certain kids, just like him, and he understands when he was young, they kind of got to do that. They just kind of have that in them.
Yeah.
They need to get into the ring.
They
They
gotta
need
get
to
it
look
out.
at somebody, and they need to fight, and they need to box, and
Yeah.
they need to develop that skill, and
Yeah.
there's just something that needs to come out of them. So
It's
I call it the
interesting.
mean bone.
Yeah, you got to get it. You got to get it out, and it's better to get it out there.
And it's not for everybody, and it's so obvious.
Yeah.
Just me visiting the gym, it's like, yeah, that kid's not really.
It wasn't-
And that's okay. That's a good thing.
It wasn't for me. I told Tony, I walked into a ring one time when I was like 13 years old, and I thought, oh, I want to do this. This is really cool. My dad was somewhat of a boxer in Cuba.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is going to be amazing. I walk in, and they put this kid, I don't know if he was smaller than me, but definitely my size or smaller at that time. And I thought, this is just going to be an even thing. Oh my God. I mean, it was so fast. I mean, it was seconds before the coach was screaming from, stop that fight, stop that. I mean, he was just devouring me.
Yeah.
And I never felt it. By then I have had a lot of street fights, even at that age.
Okay.
And I thought I knew how to fight because sucker punching, anybody can sucker punch
Right.
and knock somebody out with one punch
Yeah.
if you know how to do that.
Right.
That's totally different when you're up against somebody that knows how to fight and has that bone in them.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that bone in. I was too
Right.
afraid to fight, so the sucker punch was the go-to because I didn't want to get hit.
Right.
But it was fascinating when you get in somebody that knows what they're doing. That's when I knew this is not for me.
Yeah.
I'm not a fighter.
Yeah. And that's probably a good thing.
That's a good thing, right? That's a good thing.
Yeah, there's things that, he spent a lot of time at the gym, and, we talk about how other areas were missed, with our family, and
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's good to have a balance, and we talk a lot about having balance, and I think with a relationship, it's important, right, that you're not too heavy on one side, that you can find some things that you have in common that you do together, like exercise for us, all different aspects of it, weightlifting or running or hiking. And
Well, it's funny. You know that I just went to the True North Health Center thing that I told you. I went with Susan, and if I got anything out of that experience, was my insensitivity towards Susan and what she needs when it comes to nutrition.
Wow.
And
Okay.
it was really, because it started at your house. It started that day where, you so generously and beautifully prepared all these foods, and it was so cool. And then you put some things out there that you thought I might try, but I didn't because I'm on this journey, and you were so kind and respectful about it, even though I felt, even Susan said afterwards, God, Jerry, don't you think you should have tried it?
No.
And I told her that. I said, Susan, I don't think I think Sue prepared that, and I think Sue was okay if I tried it or didn't try it. I don't think she was offended. I didn't get that at all, but Susan's got much better manners than I do, and Susan's like, but Susan did like it, and I'm glad she tried it, but I still didn't get how insensitive I was to her struggle with nutrition, because if you see somebody who's thin, you don't think they have a weight issue.
Right.
And that was my ignorance and lack of sensitivity. I was not sensitive at all that if you start to restrict things around the house, then she feels psychologically affected by it, because she struggled with anorexia when she was 17 years old, and it brings all that back. This many years later, it brings it back. So when we went to True North, and she was having a lot of conversations with people, and two of them one of them was a doctor and the other one a nurse, who struggled with the same weight issue as Susan, where if they don't take in enough nutrients, they really start withering. And Susan's the same way. Susan can forget to eat. And I don't understand that, right? Because I don't have that issue.
Right.
I can't forget.
And I shared with her, I absolutely understand.
You understand what that's like.
I've never suffered from an eating disorder, but I understand that.
You can go a day without eating if you don't pay attention. Yeah.
But I have a different relationship with food than you do, or that most people do, and that's the thing. We're out on the fringe, and it makes it harder. And it makes it harder. And then I can imagine if you're with someone that struggles with food in any way.
And we found out that we both struggle with food.
Right.
Through this whole thing, now what we found out, she's always known that I struggle with food because it's evident that when you're a 80-pound yo-yo up and down over the last 30-something years, she knows I struggle with food.
Right.
And she can understand when I say I'm a food addict, she can understand what that means. And that I do have to abstain for certain things because they sort of are slippery slopes for me.
Right.
Maybe I shouldn't say they sort of are. They are slippery slopes for me. But for me not to get that she has her own relationship to food and her own issue with food was a miss on my part. But the fact that even at this juncture in our relationship, I find it fascinating that we can still improve our relationship. And
that's exactly when I think about me and Tony, how you've grown to a higher level and learned and seen the connection, and you're able to help each other.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it is.
It's really cool.
It is.
I'd
love to talk with you, work with you, get a sense of where you're at with your food and Susan and.
Well, why don't we talk about it?
Yeah.
You can talk about it now.
Well, yeah.
It's not personal. For me, it's not personal at all.
Maybe just to be able to help. Combine the two of you together with your food. Yeah. And just like a kitchen visit kind of thing.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Yeah.
That would be a lot of fun. I actually met a chef who's written a couple of books that I've used. Some recipes in her books are beautifully displayed books, primarily the way from the True North Health, because she writes books that are sold at the True North Health Center, so they are SOS free and things like that.
Right.
But it would be fascinating to work with somebody who can help me. Her name is, by the way, let me finish that thought. Her name is Kathy Fisher, and she was doing a demo while I was there. And I actually asked her if she would be as generous as to come on the podcast and talk, because she puts flavor. She puts flavor. And I just cooked some of her recipes at the house the other day, and everybody just went crazy. I made a brown rice pudding. With instead of sugar, with dates.
Oh yeah.
And instead of milk, it was almond milk, and it was creamy and delicious, and cardamom and cinnamon, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
But what I found funny about that is that if it was the rice pudding that my family would cook, the dopamine on my system would come on so strong that I'd probably eat the whole pot of. I could sit eating a whole pot.
And you were much more satisfied with the fiber and everything that was available.
I can eat one serving of it, or maybe two or three, but not 10 or 12.
Right.
And it had the raisins, and you're right, all the fiber and everything in it was really calming, and it wasn't the same experience.
Right.
But it still satiated in a way that was. So when you talk about coming onto the kitchen and maybe incorporating something to the way that I eat, so it affects Susan with more, because what I find is that she needs more calorically dense foods.
Yeah.
And that's what I also picked up from True North, because Susan really doesn't like beans, legumes, or things like that. And they're pretty much looking at her like, if you're going to eat the way Jerry eats and you don't eat beans or lentils or anything like that, they even suggested maybe that she get a food coach or something to talk about that and try to work through that, because there are things that we can prepare with beans and with lentils and things like that, or frankly a nice quality piece of meat. It's just what has to happen. And she's okay, and she loves fish and she doesn't mind meat, so we just have to incorporate that for her. And that's totally fine, and I'm totally fine with that, especially now that I've been separated from the salts that keep me addicted. I'm in a much better place with it, so I'm just happy to evolve. Okay. Not necessarily, I wouldn't say that I'm prepared to change the way that I eat, but I'm definitely super open to incorporating calorically dense things to her plate. You know, I'm definitely open to that.
Yeah.
I still think that I have to be, you know, it's only been 8-9 months. It was since November
Okay.
since I made this decision.
Okay.
And I'm also looking at the statistics. They say that, and I went into this thinking about the statistics. I think it's like less than 5% of all people that have a significant weight loss can hold that for a 2-year period. So I'm looking at that 2-year period, and I'm not even, and that's from the day you reach your goal. Well, guess what? I haven't reached my goal yet.
And I think, and this, I don't have any experience with it, but what I read or I've learned or I've been exposed to is sometimes an extreme change for most people is so, it just doesn't work. In the
Right.
beginning it works and
Right.
they feel better.
Right.
Not so much what they're eating, but what they're not eating, because what they were eating before was giving them, you know, wasn't a good balanced nutritious diet.
Right.
So they've taken a balanced nutritious diet and they've maybe shrunk it down to only include a small amount, you know, a small variety, and it's so inhibiting that it's not sustainable and it's not satisfying, right? So even though they're feeling better and
Yeah.
they're losing weight, then slowly these other foods that they like that put them in that spot
Right.
slowly come back, slowly come back,
100%.
slowly come back. Instead of, and I sent a podcast to you, Sal
I have not
DeStefano.
heard it yet.
So was a professional weightlifter, and he works now. He still weightlifts, and he's in incredible shape. But he's really diet and lifestyle and nutrition and weightlifting to support that. But he really has vast knowledge, and he's kind of he's hard to listen to sometimes, but he's a great guy. But his philosophy that I thought you would enjoy is these small changes, right? But I know for you, this is the right thing for you. You're different, and I can see that this is going to help you get on the road, your life road, right? And slowly you'll be able to evolve as you feel more confident in yourself,
Right.
and that you're able to restrict because you feel so good and you know it's healthy.
Well, can I jump in real
Yeah.
quick? So the one thing that I've sort of awakened to is that so here, this is different, and I've learned this. I've tripped over it as I'm doing it, and I've also heard it from the outside, but is what I do, and we'll have you over so you'll see what I mean. So what I do, I think, is the opposite of restriction. And the reason why I think what I do is the opposite of restriction is because what I'm doing now is so much more diverse than anything I've ever done.
Okay.
So
Okay.
consider that the way
Yeah.
that I used to eat, I would wake up, I would stop at the market and maybe get a breakfast burrito, you know, and then for lunch, I go for lunch and I'd probably had my favorite place. I get a bowl of pasta, or I get something, or or I get a salad, or Cobb salad. Let's say I get a Cobb salad, and then for dinner I go home and I would eat fish and rice or something like that, and a salad. But then I would binge all night on Ritz crackers or something like that, and that was always the nightmare, the unravel of that drug called processed foods that would make me feel maybe like an alcoholic feels after they have a couple of shots. I would, not to compare the two, but you know, you feel like your shoulders drop and you feel. So those were kind of, if I were to kind of give you the idea of what happened every day in one way, shape, or form, those were my food groups. You know, one day we can take the Cobb salad out, and the following day Idisham and I would eat fish tacos, you know, or the following day. But then they would have a sauce, and they would have mayo on them, and they would have all these
The
hidden
nacho
stuff,
chips would
and the
come,
chips with
yeah,
guac and all that.
uh-huh.
So those were my foods every day, and that was the world of my plate every day, 7 days a week. What is different now is the diversity in what I eat in a day is probably 30 to 40 plants, 30 to 40 plants and vegetables, and then you throw beans, legumes. There's 50 to 60, 70 things that happen in a day that go through my gut and my gut microbiome. And in that, sometimes there's kimchi, sauerkraut, there's tempeh that we're starting to use now.
that's
There's so now what I found when I went to True North, I was kind of at a plateau of 206, and then in 3 days I dropped like 2 pounds by eating more. And the way that I think that happened, I was like, Susan, I don't know how that could possibly happen, because they have food available to you 24/7. So you don't stop eating the whole time you're there. But what's available to you is like 60 or 70 different food items for diversity
Okay.
that are all, none of them have sugar, oil, or salt,
Right.
but they have this type of diversity that I'm just eating all day. All this diversity is going through my gut and my gut's microbiome. And all of a sudden, I normally go to the bathroom once a day. You go to the bathroom 2-3 times a day because the amount of fiber and all that. And you talk about, you know how, not to get into the poop subject, but you know when you go to the potty when you did good, and you know when you did great.
Right.
You know, you walk out of there and you're like, holy moly, this was pretty special. And you hope you have one of those a day.
Right.
It's pretty amazing.
Right.
I was having 2 or 3 of those a day. Like,
Yeah.
I was empty 2 or 3 times a day, and my system was my system was running as well as I was running with Tony down the hill that day, where I felt like a kid liberated from all bad.
Right.
And that's I just wanted to highlight that, because I hope people start to understand, anybody listening, I hope they start to understand, especially relatives of mine that are struggling with some things, probably brought on by bad diets and maybe alcohol and maybe things like that, that there's more diversity out there than drinking. There's more diversity out there than having a piece of cheesecake. There's more diversity out there than having that, because to live the way that you're living, you're not eating Ritz crackers, and you know what I'm saying? You're not eating something processed.
Right.
I know you and Tony like meat. I know Tony likes meat more than you. But I imagine Tony will have a good piece of meat. You know, he's not going to eat shoe leather or something like that. He's going to eat and then I'm sure that because you're around, there's veggies involved, and there's a balance, and there's diversity and variety.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I went into a long sermon.
Yeah, that's okay. Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely.
But to say that I'm open to whatever people's needs are, because now I understand it better than when I was even at your house. How yes, there are people that need those more dense calories. They need them. They need them, and they have to have them, and they should have them.
Right.
You know, I understand it now way better than I did just a week ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Said by some of the people at this place.
Yeah.
I mean, one young nurse said, "Oh, I have to eat meat." I would disappear if I didn't have something that dense every day. I would literally. She built like Susan. She said, I would disappear.
Well, what's interesting is when we moved more towards, Tony wanted to move more towards a keto diet, right? And that was hard for me. I continued to eat my vegetables, but lose weight. So meat's not really, the protein's not, right?
Yeah.
Not what's going to put weight on you. So, yeah. So we had to add more. We had to go back more towards a paleo diet because he got really thin. And so we've kind of, that's what we've moved around, you know, as new research comes and new findings. I think we're lucky that both of us, we enjoy food. We like to eat together. We're both fairly indifferent to food. You know, it's not a place where we get comfort. It's not a place where, you know, we end up having company and visiting and not even eating what I've made, and my whole plate's full and everybody's done, and it's like, okay, I guess I'm done, you know. So it's not, we don't look at food in that way. We look at it as being nourishment, and we do enjoy it. And it's simple. I keep all our food simple. I don't follow a lot of complicated recipes.
Yeah, I don't think either one of you get that dopamine from food. I
No.
think you get it from other things. And,
Right.
and honestly, I think that's like such a burden off of you because
Right.
it's a battle. I mean, when we make food our warm, cozy blanket,
Yes.
oh man, it's the one thing you can't run away from.
But now you're diversifying more.
Exactly.
You're running a little
Exactly.
bit. You're getting more exercise in.
Exactly.
There is no dopamine that comes stronger.
And I know that now.
Yes. Yes.
Well, and the doctor told me, he says, he's like you, the doctor really kind of called me out, not in a bad way, but he said, you're running a lot and that's wonderful. He says, but start lifting. He says, really start lifting more. He says, start, don't leave that out.
Running's very one-dimensional. You think you're just moving forward, you're just using certain muscles. It's nothing, very, very little with your upper body. You're going uphill and using a little bit, but you will become, especially women, very thin on top and build your leg muscles, but only in certain ways. It doesn't develop your quad muscle all the way around, and it doesn't develop your calf all the way around. So lifting weights, and as we get older, we lose muscle mass. It's just a fact. And especially being careful if you're not getting a lot of protein, that can contribute to muscle loss too. So.
And one thing, not to, the one thing that I find, and I was just listening to an amazing podcast. I just listened to it for the second time because I find it fascinating. You listen to Rich Roll, right?
A little bit,
yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, he's really plant-based, so,
Yeah.
He was an champion ultra marathoner.
Yes, he was.
Pretty amazing.
Tremendous athlete.
Yeah,
yes.
swimmer, big-time swimmer.
Yes, he was.
And he had an amazing doctor who's run all kinds of tests and all that, but he says, a couple of the things that we struggle with is that we think we're lacking protein, and protein is usually not what we're lacking, is fiber. In this country, rarely is anybody protein deficient. And that's the doctor speaking. And then he's also saying that we think that even bodybuilders think they need more than they need, but they're already getting a lot of it through the amount of calories they're consuming anyways, because a lot of these guys are consuming 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 calories a day, depending on what kind of workouts they're doing, right?
Right.
So it's, I'm a firm believer that the protein has been driven a little bit as an agenda to just sell more dairy, more. I think it does, because
I know you have the new Peter Attia book. Have you read it?
no, I almost bought it the other day, but I thought it was in my hand at the bookstore.
Okay, we'll loan it to you.
Okay. Well, I want to do the auditory one because
I really respect his.
I do too.
Yeah, he's a medical doctor worked at a super high level in his career. He left because he was so frustrated with the system of Western medicine. He came back and went into functional medicine where he could really help you. He works on furthering his knowledge every single day.
He's his own experiment.
He's involved in research.
Yeah.
He gets research results. He tracks it. I mean, him and Huberman are
I like
two,
Huberman,
but Peter Attia is a medical doctor, and he has so much experience working with people with health problems, and continues to do that. So his knowledge and experience, I really respect him a lot, and I gotta say.
Is he saying to eat 24 ounces? How many ounces a day?
He's been saying that for a while.
How many ounces a day does he say?
It's 1 gram per body weight, and you made a very good point of what is your ideal body weight, and so really, I'm a little under where I should be, maybe. So if I track at 130, right, 130 grams of protein a day. So, and I get in that ballpark,
but I think
eating a reasonable and balanced diet. I don't.
Doesn't it have anything to do with, this is a cool topic, doesn't it have anything to do with also the amount of strength training you're doing? Because I don't know that a sedentary person who's even at their ideal body weight needs to be taken in 1 gram per pound. If you're not working out, if you're not using it, if you're not
you're probably losing muscle mass quicker than the next person. So maybe
but the
supporting it.
But eating protein doesn't build muscle. It's the workout.
Build it, but it can help maintain it a little.
It's the workout.
Yeah.
I like to possibly take this journey with you? Which I mean is for us to look at Atia's content, because I trust it.
Yes.
You know, in Huberman's, I'd love to
Yes.
go through that with you.
Yeah.
And just come up with what is what do they mean by it?
Right.
Because I also think that sometimes consumers can misunderstand that, and I think a lot of people that are thinking of taking on in all this protein every day are not even going to the gym.
Well,
So I think they're trying to use gasoline in a car that's not even being ran.
yeah, and so you're gonna eat a certain amount of food a day, and there's certain food quality
Right.
that you have.
Right.
What's your diet? What's the backbone of your diet?
Right.
What's the nutritional profile of your diet?
Right.
So that to me is number one. That's number one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Before I even think about for myself, this is what I think for myself, or I talk to other people that want to talk to me about nutrition, and I say, what does your diet look like? Really write it down and say, what does your diet look like? So you're talking to me about protein. You want to add 150 grams of protein a day, and you want to make sure you get it, right?
Right.
Why?
Right.
Because I don't want to lose muscle mass. Okay. But what does your diet look like?
I
right?
love that.
Is
love
your
that.
diet so poor?
Why are we
This-
even talking about
Why
that?
are we even talking?
Why are we even talking about? I love that. That's
We have to go. We have to
Yeah.
make a nutritious diet for you.
Yes.
And to me, a balanced, nutritious diet has protein in it. It should
100%. Oh,
it should be
100%.
part of your.
100%.
And I think, and this is where we part ways,
Yeah.
is there needs to be some animal-based products in your diet. That's
Oh,
just
I don't
where-
think we part ways.
Okay.
Just so you know,
Okay.
I don't think we part ways. I think based on what I've learned, I think we need it. I think we evolved. You know, part of the evolution is that we
Right.
eat meat.
Right.
So I can't dismiss that.
Yeah.
I'm now, because knowing that I have an addiction to food, I found a way to kind of.
Right, and I
Just-
think if someone says, you know what, I
Yeah.
have
And I don't know that meat
I
would
eat-
drive. I don't know that if I started eating
Yeah.
meat without salt
Yeah.
tomorrow, I don't know that I can eat a lot of meat.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
salt is what would make me want to eat a big steak.
Right, but there's a lot of spices you can put on meat to bring out.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
smoked paprika.
Oh, absolutely.
All these different.
Oh,
things.
absolutely.
Yeah, and you know about spices.
No,
And
absolutely,
cumin, yeah.
absolutely. But I'm also evolving to. Then we can go into, you know, I don't like hunting. I'm getting to a place where I'm starting to believe that if you can't look an animal in the eye, don't kill it. You know, I'm starting to believe. I mean, again, personal beliefs, right? My
Right.
personal belief is that if most of us saw how an animal was treated, we might not eat it.
So we're conscious meat eaters.
Yeah.
We really are.
Yeah, and I
when
think-
we were in Shasta, we were able to do that better, where they had the ranches and they treated the animals correctly.
And you
they
can see
kept-
how they treat them because
Right,
nobody
and-
knows.
Right.
You know, I can't watch an animal be killed.
Right.
You know, I can't. And if
Right.
I could, then I think I deserve to partake. If I could, I honestly believe that, you know, we used to have to kill our animals, you know, to feed
Right.
our the man would leave
Right.
and bring back the prize, and then
Yeah.
everybody would feast. So again, but I'm also, as most of us are, evolving and changing in
Yeah.
how we do things and how we see things. So again, if I'm the guy that doesn't kill it, I'm not the guy that eats it. I'm not the guy that farms either, so I don't know that I should be eating veggies, right? So so there's all kinds of issues, and we can go down the wormhole of people think plants have feelings, and and we can really lose ourselves.
I know.
It
It becomes a little ridiculous.
It becomes beyond ridiculous,
Right.
but at
And-
least
and
that's where I'm at.
We're at the top of the food chain, pretty
And
much.
we pretty much we definitely are.
And
Yeah.
like I said, I try to be respectful with what the animals that we do, you know, the meat that we do buy, and try to know that they were at least grass fed, that they were at least free range, they weren't
Yeah.
given antibiotics and, you know, hormones. They didn't need them because they were healthy, and that's.
But now
correct.
I also don't believe that, because, and again, I was in the produce industry. I don't believe that all produce that says organic is organic, and I don't believe that, and I do believe that all produce that's conventional has pesticides in it, and it shouldn't be called conventional. It should be called with pesticides.
Yeah, I love that.
Right? They should call produce, because then nobody would buy conventional produce,
and then we could go back to.
They'd have to go to organic. Everybody had to
Right.
go to organic. Would be the thing, you know,
Right.
and it would be hard to generate probably the volume of food that we generate. But trust me, I think we'd figure it out.
We would.
We
and
would figure it out.
The amount of waste that we have in our culture
Come on.
is ridiculous.
Come
so
on.
I think it would balance out, and I
Absolutely.
think there's a lot of health concerns around, particularly Roundup, which is one of the main culprits of the spraying, and they proved that. And
100%.
Monsanto's been paying out, but yet we still use it. Other countries haven't used it in years.
And there's amazing, and then when you think about on the meat side, there's a place, I think Huberman talks about it, or Atia. I think Atia talks about a farm in Hawaii that has this free, I think it's bison that runs around or something like that, and that's the only meat I think he eats.
Okay.
You know, it's from this ranch in Hawaii. I'm sure it's not cheap.
Yeah.
But the more we move towards wild game and things like that, then there's not that suffering of animals going through a mill and that packaging process and all that. So I think there's a lot that we can do to improve the situation and the way things are, and it doesn't have to be just seas of cows, you know, farting all over the place. But you know, so it's just. It's fascinating that I'm even talking like this, honestly, because I never even cared either way, honestly.
Right.
So it's maybe by just what I'm exposed to, and talking to people like you and having this conversation, I think is fascinating that you're open to it, and that we feel okay with each other talking about it, because your needs are different than mine. I know that for sure.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
You know. And in our own evolution too, those can change and mold and bend, because man, it took 56 years to get me to this point.
All the time. I think every year, once you hit, I'd say late 50s, that's when I think our awareness of really our diet needs to modify a little bit, maybe every year, you know, really see where we're at, how we're feeling, what our weight is, body fat.
I wish people would do it when they were younger. I wish there was something, you know, through education or something that and I think as kids we were always told, take care of your body, you only have one, this and that. But man, there wasn't the content that we have now, you know, like some of those documentaries that we've talked about, and some of those things that are very factual, and that if kids can take in that information, you know, they might make.
We didn't have so much corrupted food back then.
No, 100%. Oh, well, yeah, and the slippery slope, from what I've gathered, started in the 70s, right, with the invention of the TV dinner. Pretty much. I mean, it just went. It all went to shit after the TV dinner.
Yeah, they were in the laboratory figuring out, you know, how do we get these potatoes not to congeal? How do we make the mouth feel where they want more and more and more? Well, we add this oil to it, right?
100%.
Not butter, but oil.
100%.
So they started figuring out how can we sell more product, and it took away from the nutritional value of just a potato, you know, just a regular potato that used to be, you know, baked in the oven. And
we have a, you know, I used to wholesale produce for a living before I ever started my real estate business, and I remember, I don't know if you know this, but have you ever eaten at Rutherford Grill?
Oh, yes.
Okay, of course, everybody. It's wonderful, right? Everything.
Staple of the Napa Valley.
How are those cold cannon potatoes? Amazing, right?
Right.
The mashed potato. Everybody talks about the cold cannon potatoes.
Right.
You know, those are not real potatoes.
They're not even real potatoes.
That's a dehydrated processed product. I used to sell them produce. They never bought a box of potatoes from me, and I used to wonder, how is this possible? Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if it's changed today. Right. We're going back 20 years. They didn't buy it, and there was those cold cannon potatoes. I have the little cabbage in them. I would sell them the cabbage.
Right.
The cabbage was real cabbage. The potatoes were dehydrated flakes that would taste better than a real potato.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And you know, and now they sell that plate for $30, and the potatoes are a powdered potato that's probably pretty expensive too. It's not like it's an inexpensive product.
Right.
But they don't deal with any shrinkage. They don't go bad.
Right. And we talked about hyper palatable food, how it's been processed stimulate your brain like a drug does.
Which is
like
why,
cocaine does.
and which is why we're taking in the calories that we're taking in. 70% of the population is overweight.
Yeah.
70% of the population is overweight. A huge percentage of those are obese and morbidly obese. I
Diabetic.
felt into that category. I didn't become diabetic by the grace of God. I don't know how that didn't happen because, unfortunately, a lot of people in my family are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's hard. It's like environmentally you're running away from it. You're just constantly running away from it.
Everywhere you go, it's there. Yeah, you go to the grocery store, I just went to Kohl's and they had candy lined up.
Of course they did.
Right by the counter, just where your kids are,
Of
so
course
they
they
can
did.
see it, and it's everywhere.
Well, Irisham and I had a company meeting yesterday, and a lot of times we'll go and grab a bite somewhere, and I was like, okay, let's go eat somewhere. And the minute, just to think about going to eat somewhere, intellectually now I know that it's going to be a disappointment. That for me, going to a restaurant 9.5 out of 10 times is a disappointment.
That's so funny because me too.
It's disappointment.
Me too. Tony always, wants to go out, and it's like I just have to pick so careful because I am so disappointed with the quality of the food that we get.
I finally told him, I said, do you mind? Can we go to my house? I said, can we just go? Because I have leftovers.
That's why I invite people to come
Oh,
over.
I have leftovers that are amazing.
Yes.
And I fed him,
Yeah.
he ate, and we're like, both, we felt good. And then we had that rice pudding for dessert, and
Yeah,
we're both like,
delicious.
we're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody was disappointed.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that's where I think that's where we have an opportunity to take control. I know food is convenience
Right.
for a lot of people,
Right.
but we have to put in some effort.
Right. It's shopping.
It's the whole
It's
thing.
preparing. It's cooking, and it's cleaning up.
The whole
cooking
thing.
is.
Yeah.
You have to be. I'm super anal organized in the kitchen just over the years of cooking, and a lot of times I do double of whatever
The
I'm
batches?
doing. Right, and Tony is totally happy with leftovers. I'll freeze it because I don't want to cook every day, and I never really, as much as I love to cook, then it's a chore, then
That's
it's tedious, then it's trying to come up with something to eat. Oh, I need to stop by the store. I like to cook every other day, right? Or breakfast and lunch this day, and I've got dinner from the night before, so it's not such. I can see how it could be a burden, and one of the things for me, like you talked about Susan, was that burden. For me, I don't want to eat. Right? I'm tired. I'm burnt out. I don't want to cook as much as I like it.
Susan's like Tony. Susan wants to go out. She loves the experience of going out and all that.
Okay.
But then she finds herself disappointed quite often.
Okay.
Even sitting there, she usually has a complaint.
Yeah.
She usually has I didn't order this, or I didn't know, or oh God, this was just really yucky, or it's like, why do we do this to ourselves?
Yeah, it's hard.
And I tell, I have a couple people that are very close to me who are struggling with some things, and I said, the only way that you wrap a lasso around this is stop blaming your husband or your wife. Start taking over the kitchen and start by going to the grocery store yourself.
Yeah.
And shop for yourself.
Right.
Stop blaming your husband, your wife, your kids. You have to start with yourself.
Right.
And then start being, and by being, maybe people will pick up on it.
Yeah, and we can get food delivered now. I do Whole Foods.
Oh.
It cost me $7 to go
So
across
worth
the
it.
bridge, and it's $10 for delivery.
Cost you more to start the car and have
Spend an hour over there shopping.
and the chances of a flat tire, let it go.
Yeah. So that's one of the.
And if you have to pay the toll, then on top of that, it's game over.
Right. Right. So yeah, I think there's a lot of little ways and that's where, bring it back around to Sal, to Stefano, how he slowly implements little changes.
Oh, I can't wait to listen to it.
For people that really make a big difference.
Yeah.
I like that strategy. I like that strategy for myself. If I see there's a problem and I have the willpower to change, abruptly change and make a huge change, but I think when you research and know what you're doing and you do it in these small increments and move towards it and find how it fits in your life and how it's sustainable, then it's sustainable.
Oh,
then
and-
you can
and-
do it forever.
and
And
ju-
it's like, okay, it was a little bit of a burden, but it was little. But when you take this whole big, I have to change, 27 different things, it's
Yeah.
like as much willpower as I have, it's too much.
Well, for me, it was. I find that there are two kinds of people, and there is the people like me that just dive in 2 feet 1st when they make a decision.
Yeah.
You know, I remove sugar, oil, salt, caffeine, and alcohol. So
Yeah.
5 things went out all at once.
Right.
So I went through. You know,
Yeah.
if you could have put me in a straight jacket, you probably needed to. You know,
Yeah.
it was hard for a few weeks. It was
Yeah.
really hard.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I recommend that for anybody.
Right.
Then the other half tip their toe in the water and they start doing how you're saying that person says, and I think that's more palatable for most people to just
Right.
kind of incorporate, pull some things out, put some things in,
Right.
and I think that gives you a little bit more of a footing. But again, my type is all in.
Right.
You
And
know,
there's
I need to
different
pull.
types of
It's
personalities.
so
Absolutely.
personal.
Yeah.
But I also want to share with you that I have been making incremental changes even in this way because, you know, first I started with Furman, and with Furman, Dr. Joel Furman talks about G-bombs, and you know, every day you eat greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, seeds, and nuts, and that's kind of what you should have every day. But he doesn't want you to really eat any complex carbs till you get the weight off. So I did that for 60 days and lost 40 pounds. So the body does want to get rid of excess water weight, the swelling, inflammation, all that stuff was like, it just went away.
Yeah.
But then after I talked to Furman, I talked to Dr. Lyle, who co-authored The Pleasure Trap with Dr. Goldhammer, and he was pretty much telling me something similar to what you may be saying, which is, you know, it's not sustainable. You know, he didn't even sugarcoat it. He says, you can't hold that. You can't hold that, what you're doing, forever. He says you should consider incorporating some what we call wet carbohydrates because they'll sort of satiate and take the place of the meat because the human needs and wants the meat.
You'll
Even
hit that spot in your brain that
so that was where
satisfies you.
the brown rice, the pasta, those kind of things came in, which I didn't. In my mind, I'm like, I'm never touching pasta. I'm never touching, and I had to concede and let that happen. So then my trainer goes in. You're not getting enough protein. You're not getting enough protein because he wanted to see me build some muscle. So then I started putting in, because I was counting and I couldn't hit the numbers. I was hitting probably like, I don't know, half a gram to 0.75 of a gram per pound is what I was getting. And I started incorporating pea-based protein powders and things like that. But then I found that what I found is that then I would make my smoothies so calorically dense because then I would throw hemp seed, this seed, chia seed. I can make 1,000 calorie smoothie. You know what I'm saying? So then it became a slippery slope.
Now, do you count calories?
No.
Okay.
But I would if I would see my weight kind of stall
Okay.
or my progress just disappear.
Right.
Then I would count for a couple days. I would really count, and that's where I would see, or I would count something. So then I counted.
So that was one of the problems that to get proper protein from non-animal products, you have to eat a lot.
Oh.
And the nutritional profile. So if you take, you know, a piece of red meat, a lean piece of red meat, and you take pea protein, or you take beans and rice, and you look, it's like red meat's way up here.
100%.
And so the more nutritional value you get, from what I understand and what works for us, my personal experience, ours, and just researching, there is some satisfaction and satiation for your body, not your brain, but for your body, which will eventually go up to your brain, that's being met and being satisfied.
Yeah.
And I could, if I didn't eat meat, I would, animal protein in some way, you know, we do the kefir, the fermented yogurt, and we do eggs, and we do cheese, and I do cottage cheese, and then we do a variety of meats. We do fish a couple times a week at least. I love like sardines and oysters and clams out of it, which is super convenient, super nutritious.
But you see, I can overeat on because I know, and
Okay.
I can overeat on that kind of stuff like you have no idea.
Yeah.
Sardines? Oh my God, I can eat 5 cans of those things.
Really?
Love them.
Wow, that's
Love them.
interesting.
Love them.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you're talking to a food addict, it's really different. The amount of
Yeah.
food that a food addict needs, a lot of times it happens with expansion
So it's
receptor.
but it's emotional.
It's 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, 100% emotional.
Do you think as you get to a better place. Hopefully
Maybe.
through exercise and some lifestyle changes.
I don't.
That food will be pulled back, way back.
I believe that's
Yeah,
happening.
I
I believe
yeah.
that's sort of happening.
And with Susan, as you grow in that way.
I believe that's happening, but
Yeah.
it probably is a slow. I mean, consider that this has been 56 years to get to this point.
Yeah.
I don't think it's months. I think it's years.
And I think in your 50s, there is such an awakening
Yeah.
and realization. Like your life's
Yeah.
your life's got more simple because your kids are grown. You have grandkids. And
I
things,
agree. No,
but-
I totally
and
agree.
And your experience comes in, what's worked, what hasn't. You're
Yeah.
able to see yourself. You're getting maybe closer to less work and towards retirement. And you're just able to kind of get up and look down at yourself and your experiences and your partner that you love so much
100%.
and say, wow, I'm in look at my growth, look at my understanding. These are some things I need to do. And they're clear. And they feel like I can do them, and that's a good feeling.
And you just touched on something. Just maybe we'll start wrapping up. Just
Okay. Yeah.
because I am sensitive to your time. Clarity has been probably one of the most.
And the healthier you get,
The more clarity you get.
the more clarity you
100%.
get. Yeah, you
100%.
don't wake up hurting and trying to get out of bed.
That's what I want to share
you
with
have
people.
inflammation
Yeah.
And oh my
It's
God,
that
I ate too much last night.
Yes.
And this.
Yes.
Those are all consuming
Yes.
you. Where you wake up and it's just like yay.
Yes.
Yay.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
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 And the movement, and then it continuously moves. I mean, it doesn't stay still.
Yeah, and something that I did that really stood out to me during my time in the emergency room was just like that, you can be gone. Just like that. You could be 50, you could be 40, you could be 20. So once you're 60 and past, it's like, okay, this is the last part of our lives. And you think, oh, you're so dramatic. It's not.
No,
This is
it's
it.
true.
And me and Tony have just really locked arms about, let's be happy. Let's do, it's not a world trip, it's not a cruise around the world. It's not, it's right
living that way. It's living
in
this
our
way.
house.
Right here, right now.
Right here, right now.
I love
Let's
that.
not save our money, be so conscious. Our kids need our
Yeah.
kids are fine.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Yeah.
I want to live our life to the fullest, be the happiest. We earned it. We've saved. We
Yeah.
deserve it.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
Yes.
Everybody does. And if you're not close to that, to think about that, and it is possible. It is
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every day, just little steps every day.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So before we part ways, we should make sure that we set a date for you guys to come over.
Yeah.
That would
Definitely.
be fun.
We'd love to.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
We'd love
So I'll
to.
throw a couple dates at you
Okay.
when we part, before we part, and see if you guys can come over. We have all the kids are at the house because they're remodeling their house, so you get the full brew.
Okay. Good.
But I'd love for you guys to get the full brew experience because
Okay.
it'll be fun.
Yeah, we love it.
And then we can go maybe we can go run a little bit around the golf course or something.
Yeah, definitely.
we'll-
and we want you to come back and
Oh
run
God,
too.
yeah. Your
we're
place is easy. Your
Yeah,
place is a no-brainer.
yeah,
I
definitely.
love it.
We have a friend that's training for a marathon, so he's coming over tomorrow, and Tony's going to run a 10-mile loop, and then they're going to come back, and I'm going to run with him a 10-mile loop, so we can get his training. And told him, we have a bathroom, we can get water and everything right there at the house. So that's
Part of my biggest thing right now is to, like today, I only went on a mile run on the treadmill. And it takes, when you start getting up to, 10-mile runs, it takes a lot to park the ego and work on recovery. That's insanely hard.
Especially if you're new to running, your body wants some recovery time. And I shared with you, I ended up buying an elliptic for the house because the days that I was able to exercise, but my legs weren't quite ready for a pounding.
Yeah.
I would use the elliptic for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. Let's do a podcast.
It's funny. I thought of using it today. Maybe I should do that.
And you can really work on your running form. Really.
Because it really keeps you.
It does.
I love
it
that.
keeps you in alignment. And I was, when you're running, that you want to keep your feet pretty much underneath
I'm going to use the
you.
elliptical. I'm going to do a daily routine
Yeah.
on the elliptical at least 5 days a week. I think I'm going to do that.
And you can get a good workout. You can kind of
Oh,
make
yeah.
it go up.
Oh,
and,
that's great. No, we have some great ones at the gym where I
Yeah.
live, so we'll
and
do
that
it.
VersaClimber.
We don't have that.
Have you ever seen that
Yeah,
before?
that thing is pretty intense
that
looking.
Thing is.
That's pretty intense.
Oh my! Every muscle in your body, like
Everything.
your arms, your legs, your ankles, your feet. That was. I miss the gym. I keep asking Tony about getting one of them for the house, but he's like, no.
Thanks for spending an hour with me.
Yeah,
That's very special.
It was awesome.
We'll
It
get
was
Tony in
awesome.
here one day.
Yes.
It'll take me a little work, but
definitely.
I'm going to work on him. I'm going
Okay.
to work on him.
Okay,
I love
it'll
it.
be worth it.